that really started to just like, it just grew in my brain, right? And so I started working with some guys here. A lot of guys here are connected to people in other cities, particularly Miami. And so that kind of bridged me into Miami a little bit in my early years. And I love going to Miami. I spent a lot of time there, and I was able to kind of grow my business down there too. And so that, it really started to take off for me very fast. They plugged me in with just the right people, I guess, and got them with the right groups, and those groups started to grow, and I just became their guy.
Welcome back to the Scorpion Nest podcast. I'm really excited about this episode. I have none other than the Black James Bond, private jeweler, international playboy, freediver, art collector, music lover, and the president of the Chicago Jewelers Association.
Hey, man.
Welcome to the show, Ren Thompson.
Thank you.
So everybody that we interact with down on Wabash knows you as the jewelers guy. So
Yeah.
figure that's a good place to start. So why don't we talk about how you were inspired to enter into the world of diamonds and jewelry in the first place?
Yeah, great question. For me, it started when I was a teenager. Jewelry was always, I've considered myself a stylish guy, and so jewelry was always a fun accessory. And I spent a lot of my teen years trying to figure out how to like make my own jewelry. And so I made a lot of really bad jewelry in my teenage years. I worked in the music industry for a little bit. And when I decided to leave that, I wanted to chase my passions. And so I was like, well, I've always loved jewelry. I want to make something that's memorable to people. I want to make something that has real value. Let's try this thing out. And so the short story is I worked at some crappy jewelry stores. I worked at some really nice jewelry stores, and then I spent the better part of a year trying to find opportunity on Wabash. So I went down there like every day, talked to people, and eventually somebody listened to what I had to say and gave me a chance.
Yeah. So, in the jewelry industry, there's many ways you can get into it. You can be, a retail salesperson. You can be a manufacturer. You can be a gem wholesaler.
Yeah.
I mean, there are thousands of ways to be in the business, but you were drawn specifically to manufacturing in the beginning.
Yeah, it was manufacturing. I don't know why necessarily. I think I was always fascinated by the actual like putting together the piece, right? Not necessarily stones and everything are cool, but I like the actual designing a piece, constructing it, and then you have something new. And so that I focused a lot on the manufacturers. Just unfortunately, I didn't possess the skill set that a lot of typical people that get in very easily have. And so I had to kind of carve out a role that worked well for my talents.
So you got the chops building your own jewelry from the beginning. And as you mentioned, you made some shitty pieces, but
Definitely.
Hopefully you, refined those skills. But was that your foot in the door with where you're at now, or was it your sales and marketing background?
I think it was mostly to be honest with you, I think it was a little bit of both. I think it was clear that I had so on the music side, I did a little bit in the music equipment manufacturing side. And so it was clear that I understood how manufacturing worked. So I understood just supply chain management, things like that. For the sales and marketing side though, I think my personality kind of shined through there, and this company recognized that we have a gap here, and for us to get to where we want to go, we need the right person to fill this gap. And they just were not able to find, I don't think they even knew where to begin with it. And when they met me, people flew in from different places. I had to go through a lot of interviews actually. And they were like, yeah, we're just going to make this role for you and you figure it out. And I was like, oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. Cool. Yeah. So that's really how I got in and how I kind of got things rolling for me down in Wabash.
Okay. We have an audience that is not necessarily in tune with Jewelers Row or what's going on down there. You're very prominent in our community, but let's give the listeners or the viewers some insights, kind of where you came from. So maybe we can start post high school, and you can give us like the early years of Ren Thompson.
Yeah. So post high school, in high school, I was a big sports guy. I always loved sports. I was an athlete, obviously. And so post high school, I wanted to keep doing that. I always, honestly, what I wanted to be growing up was I wanted to be a professional runner, weirdly enough. That and an R&B singer. And neither worked out. But I got to play sports in college. I played at a large school in Iowa. I played 2 sports. And that was really good for me. But my passion was always creative things. And my siblings, my father was a very creative person. And so I pursued those as my actual study focuses in college. And just by chance, honestly, I had scored like a short film for some students, and they like took it to like Hollywood and were like trying to pitch this thing. And I didn't even know this, to be honest.
Scored meaning you created the music for
Yeah, I did the music behind it. Did a lot of the some guys, depending on where you are in the industry, they call it like Foley work, but think like when you walk over a leaf in a movie and it crunch it, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So I did a lot of that work for them for a short film. It was probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes long.
Okay.
But they had tried to use that as a pitch for them to get their foothold in the entertainment business in LA. For whatever reason, it got in front of the right person, and they didn't necessarily like the film, but they liked the job that I did on the back end, or they saw potential.
Interesting.
And somebody contacted me, and a label basically was like, "Hey, do you have a job?" And I was like, "Definitely not." like at the time, I think I was in like restaurants or so. I was like, "I don't have any. I need money, dude." And they're like, "All right, come out here. We'll put you up." It was kind of like a what do you want to call it? Like an incubator for people with those talents.
So they're bringing in young talent or seeing
young talent. Yeah, and you're making like nothing. You're making like really no money. You got a bunch of roommates. And I had used that as a chance for me to, one, meet people. I always understood the value of networking. So I was like, I don't know you guys, but I want to keep you guys in my life. And a lot of those guys are still my friends to this day. But two, I used it to refine my skills. And I thought I knew something until I got there. And I was like, oh, I never even thought about doing this like that. And so you just pick up on so many things from people. Did that for a few years. It was all good. I was able to scrape together enough money where I saw opportunity for me to come back to Chicago.
Okay.
Despite me not necessarily wanting to be here all the time, I got like so homesick, and I love the city so much. Just it's a special city, right? And so I found a way for me to come back, work at a studio, and then also freelance a little bit on the side. And so I worked in a couple studios. It was all good. I was kind of doing the freelancing music thing, and I just, after a while, it got very stale for me doing that side of the music industry.
Yeah.
And so I started looking at like manufacturing. I found a company. I actually bought their products at the time. But I found a company that made audio equipment, and I was able to secure a job with them, kind of grew with them for a little bit, was able to exit that company. And then I was in the position where I was like, okay, well, what do we want to do? What's life? The music thing had just gotten kind of stale to me.
Yeah.
I think it was something that was probably should have just stayed a hobby.
It's funny you bring up the manufacturing of music equipment, because on the last episode with Danger Wayne, we talked about the equipment that he uses on his sets too, and Eric very well.
Yeah.
So is that have anything to do with how you met Eric back in the day?
Yeah, so just like Eric, I had also DJ'd kind of on the side, working nights and things like that. But I was always like a gearhead, and I think, Eric knows his stuff. He's been around for a long time. But I was always fascinated by the gear. And I feel like I understood that really well. I don't know if that's just my brain, the intangibles of pressing buttons and stuff. But I was just fascinated by it. And so when I saw that opportunity, it just seemed unique. And I just couldn't stand the idea of working kind of like a quote unquote normal job. It just it drove me crazy thinking about that. And I was like, I have to try everything before I go that route. I just wouldn't.
Yeah, there's a certain brain that entrepreneurs have that when you learn to work for yourself, there's no going back.
It's really, really hard.
Really. You left off on the tail end of your music career, really into manufacturing the equipment. There's a anecdote that you and I have talked about in the past that I think would be great for the viewers. You had mentioned curating playlists for restaurants. Can you jump into that? Yeah,
absolutely. So that was when I started working for this kind of manufacturer. Like I said, I was DJing at nights, right? And I realized I cannot do both. I realized it did not, for me to hold a steady full-time job, you can't necessarily be out till like 3 o'clock in the morning, every night. And so I was like, okay, well, how do I bridge this gap? There's got to be something there, right? And at the time, here in a lot of the cities that I frequented, I would notice that a lot of restaurants played really dope music. And I just made friends with some restaurant guys, and I just asked them one day, and I was like, hey, can I like make you some music for the dining room? And they loved the idea. And so I started doing it. And then I got hooked on it, because I was like, oh, the business behind this is that I can actually charge pretty similar rates to if I was DJing for a similar amount of time. But I can actually DJ now in multiple places, and I don't actually have to be there. And so that kind of like,
now you just exponentially grew your business because you can't be in 2 places at once. Now you can.
Right. And so that really started to just like it just grew in my brain, right? And so I started working with some guys here. A lot of guys here are connected to people in other cities, particularly Miami. And so that kind of bridged me into Miami a little bit in my early years. And I love going to Miami. I spent a lot of time there, and I was able to kind of grow my business down there too. And so that, it really started to take off for me very fast. They plugged me in with just the right people, I guess, and got them with the right groups, and those groups started to grow, and I just became their guy.
So that hits on a point that a lot of the scorpions here in the Scorpion Nest are really good at, and that's not only building your personal network, but networking as an activity.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, networking doesn't have to be this boring, hand them a business card, shake hands, connect on LinkedIn sort of thing.
Right.
It literally is just you showing up to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And that manifests new relationships. It manifests new opportunities. And then it also helps you grow into who you want to become. So for all you viewers and listeners out there, if the word networking kind of scares you or you're just not into it, try it organically and just show up. Things will happen for you.
You said a perfect thing there. Be at the places you want to be. And so those are the people I took interest in.
Yeah.
I want to be in this cool restaurant. I want to know, I don't want to be a guy here. I want to know the people that made it this cool.
You don't
just
get
keep
to be
up.
the Black James Bond without showing up to unique places and having some life experiences.
Good and bad, definitely.
And I know we're gonna get to the fun stuff in a little bit, but so you're pushing your music career not to the side per se, but you're following new passions. Pick it up from there.
Yeah. So it was time for me to exit that manufacturing business, and I wanted to work in jewelry really bad. It just kept sticking in my head. I started to make a little bit more money. I started buying more jewelry at the time. Just like you, I like to collect watches, and so I had to get out, right? And so like I said, I started working at some stores, and I understood the value of like you climbing a ladder, right? So I didn't expect to just come in and be like, I'm running stuff, even though I wanted to.
Yeah.
I realized that wasn't realistic. So worked at some stores, cut my teeth, right? Upgraded to some much nicer stores. Understood how to start talking to different clientele. I think, when you're out at like a restaurant or something, you could meet some very affluent or influential person and you're on an equal playing field. When you're in a jewelry store, it's not an equal playing field. That is your customer, and you need to secure whatever the thing is they're looking to do, right? And so that taught me how to like really start to build rapport with people and really affect sales.
Sure.
I realized that retail was not my thing. I don't have anything against it, but I couldn't really give the experience that I wanted to give there. I was kind of trapped in this environment, right? And so I said, okay, let's get down to the row. Let's see like where the real stuff is happening.
And for everyone viewing or listening that doesn't know what the row is, it's short for Jewelers Row. It's Wabash down in the Loop. And you go walk up and down Wabash. There's plenty of signs, plenty of diamonds ingrained in the sidewalks. So once you come down there, you'll know it's the row. Yeah,
100%. And so I spent a lot of time going. At the time, I didn't live far from there, so I could really walk there. So any extra time I had, I would go down there. I would try to talk to people. For the most part, people are receptive to you having conversations, right? Because they think you're a customer, right? Now, I'm not a customer. I'm looking for a job, right? And so I'm trying to kind of build rapport, figure out who's hiring, who's maybe not hiring. What can I even do I didn't really know where I would fit, right? And unlike most people in jewelry, I don't have family in the business. A lot of people have family, and that's how they get into the business. I didn't really have any connections in the business. And so any serious connections to get down there. And so I just started talking to people. And as things would arise, people were like, hey, you should talk to this guy over here. Go talk to that guy over there. Call this guy. And eventually I landed on my company, right? And my first interview was with a guy named Jaffrey, who's my favorite person in the world. Great guy. And he saw something in me, and he's done this many times in my career, but he really fought for me to get a bigger opportunity, right? Because the role that I applied for was a very, very entry-level role. I didn't know that there was even more available. And so he fought for me to do that. I interviewed with the CEO at the time. They had passed on me. And I was like, okay, fine. And they were like, hey, we'll call you back if we think of something, for you. Now, when you've been rejected from enough jobs, you're like, that just means you're not going to call me ever again.
Right.
And like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But they did actually call me back. It was about a month later. It was like on a Tuesday or something. And they're like, hey, can you be here tomorrow at like 9 a.m.? And I'm like, I work, but I'll be here, And so I get there, and now it's Jaffrey, the CEO, and the CEO's brother, who at the time, I didn't know this, lived in California. And so they're like, yeah, he flew in to talk to you. And so now I'm like, I don't really get nervous, but now I'm like, something's a little off here. This doesn't really happen for a role. And so Basically, what they told me was that we like your skill set, we like your energy, your personality. How about you come in for this role that we're building basically for you?
Mhm.
And little did I know at the time, but this role essentially oversaw what I was applying for.
Oh, okay, cool.
That was
So
part of the requirements.
they saw that you had potential to lead and manage,
Yeah.
and you weren't just going to be a worker bee.
Right. I think they understood that that was we talk about it a lot now in the company. That's your unique ability.
Mhm.
And so I think they saw that that was my unique ability at that time. And they had a very clear vision of how they wanted to grow the company. And we've grown tremendously since. And they saw that I could be an important part of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's it's funny you bring up the unique ability and the story about you not really having any family in the industry. So you know, as I've recently gotten into the jewelry industry, that's how I got my foothold. Was number one, showing up to the cigar lounge that we go do down here and just meeting jewelers. I met
Yeah.
a couple retailers, and then that's where, you know, I met you on
Yeah.
the manufacturing side, and then bringing my unique skill set of digital marketing and sales to some of these retailers that had an opportunity. You get your foot in the door. Now all of a
100%.
sudden you have jewelry experience, then you can take that and go flourish,
Yeah.
you know, wherever you want. So I love that you combined not only courage to keep applying down here.
Yeah.
You knew your strengths, but someone also saw that. And then when the opportunity arose, you took it because you knew this was where you wanted to be.
Yeah, 100%. And I really believe that now when I'm looking to, my role has grown and now I'm in a position where I can like hire people and make opportunities and things. I keep that in my mind when I'm talking to somebody, like a young person or anybody. I'm like, I know where I was and what I was hungry for. And it's like, do I see that in this person for what they're trying to be? And almost 100% of the time when I'm like, I don't know if this person can do it, they run for it, And my CEO actually told me something really funny. This is like several years in, right? Now we've already grown, we've made significantly more money. I've proven myself, right? And he told me this over like lunch or something. He's like, when we hired you, I thought it was gonna go one of two ways. He's like, you're either gonna fall flat on your face or this is gonna be really good.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? That's exactly what I wanted you to think. I wanted it to be either fail big or win big, you know, and it's been really good. Anything but average.
So aside from your day job, your manufacturing side, you also do some private jewelry customization on the side as well.
Yeah.
What do you get to do on that side that kind of scratches the itch that maybe you don't get to do on the manufacturing side?
Yeah, big one. So what I mentioned before about retail is retail was not for me, right? And the real reason it wasn't for me is that I couldn't create an experience. And so the manufacturing side, we make jewelry for jewelry stores. And so I never see who buys the ring. I know what store buys the ring or the thing that we're making, right? But I never get to give it to the end consumer. So the private jewelry side, I can create a really bespoke experience for you, right? Generally speaking, I do pieces for fairly influential people. I've done actors, athletes, business people, things like that. And they like being catered to. And I like creating that environment, right? So I like making someone feel special, giving them an experience that's definitely different from just walking into whatever jewelry store you want. And then I can tailor your piece to whatever it is that you need. Now, the cool part is that I'm also running a manufacturer. So it's like I control a lot of the really, really difficult part that a lot of jewelers can't control. So I know exactly what I can do and I know how I can execute it. And I can be very, very consistent.
So you have your own vertically integrated
completely
column here of just like, you're cutting out the middleman, all the fat, and you get to keep a little white meat on the side, which is phenomenal for you.
Yeah, it works really well for me from one, it's a profitable business, right? Being a private jeweler is probably the most profitable business in jewelry. But two, it's the consistency of being vertically integrated is like, people don't appreciate that in jewelry. That's the hardest thing to execute in jewelry is being consistent. As you know, predictable timelines, like, and you're up against crazy ones, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's wedding or something, you can't be late, if they got to get married. So having that type of, just reliability makes you a very hot commodity when it comes to start making pieces, especially when it comes to high-end pieces.
And you and I both see this down on the row where there's just jewelers running around across the street, building to building, vertically up and down the building. I mean, for those of you that haven't been down on Wabash, we have these multi-story commercial buildings, and it's just floors and floors and floors of not only retail jewelers, but you just have people that have just gems or manufacturing diamonds, or they just have these little gold letters and trinkets that maybe you need these one-off pieces for a custom job. I mean, everything you can think of is kind of in these several high-rise buildings, but
Yeah.
it takes a little legwork to dodge the cars going across the
Yeah.
street and then get in the elevator and go up the stairs and
A lot
go
of
into
people
these
don't,
old school shops that
Yeah.
you would never know that are there unless you were in the industry.
You would know. And a lot of people don't realize that, like, jewelry that is, it's a handmade product. Like most jewelry, there's very little that's really done machine made now when you're talking about fine jewelry, right? And so most jewelry, they don't realize that you need somebody to cast the metal. Now that you have cast metal, you need somebody to like file it and like polish it. Cool. Now you need somebody to set gems. Then you need somebody to polish it again. And then you might need, I don't know, like an earring back. I got to go to this place over here.
Yeah.
I need a box. Where do I go to get a box, right? And so like there's just so many different things. And the way Jewelers Row is set up is those are all different businesses. And
Yeah.
so you're literally running here, running there, running there. You know, it's crazy.
So the more of those options that you can consolidate into your
Yeah.
vertically integrated system there, the less time you're spending on building a project.
Yeah.
The more efficient you are, the more profitable you can be.
Yeah.
But it also translates to the end consumer, right? Where they get a consistent product in a timeline that they require, and
Yeah.
they're willing to pay for that quality product because of that system setup.
Yeah, 100%. And it's one of those things, I kind of liken it to spaghetti. And spaghetti is one of those things that's very simple, but when you have a good one, you know you have a good one. Jewelry's the same way. You
Yeah.
know, there's a lot of jewelry, but it's not all the same. And when you have a really nice piece of jewelry, you're like, I know this is a nice piece of jewelry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So are there any high profile clients that you're willing to name, or maybe tell us about the project that you've made for them? Because not everybody gets to interact with celebrities or high net worth individuals, but in
Yeah.
this industry, it's almost a given that if you're in jewelry, you're going to work with people that can afford these luxury products.
At some point, I don't know if there's somebody I can explicitly name, but I can describe them very well.
Sure.
You know, a piece that I did recently for a now friend of mine is for a very successful businesswoman in Chicago. She's an entrepreneur, very beautiful woman, and we've done a lot of jewelry together. And every once in a while, she'll come to me and she'll say, "Hey, I want to do something really special," right? And so she came to me with this concept last year where it was just a photo, right? And it was a photo of Kim Kardashian and this just ridiculous diamond necklace, right? And she's like, "Can you do this?" And I'm like, "Yes, I can do that."
Yes, I can.
And now I have to figure out, all right, how am I going to do this, right? And so what I did was I reverse engineered it, and it's, to kind of save you the long story, it's 5 stones, 5 diamonds, and it's about 30 carats of diamonds, and it forms a cross. And we got it done very quickly. I gave it to her and she loved it. She was blown away by it. But I mean, that's one of those pieces where I highly doubt I'll ever get to make something like that ever again, unless it's probably for her, you know, again. But you don't often see a 30 carat 5 diamond piece, you know, like
Because if you're thinking of like a normal engagement ring or a set of diamond
carats,
studs, you're 2, 3, 4, 5 carats maybe.
Yeah, 100%. And
So
when you're
you
talking
did
about big
30?
diamonds like that, yeah, the biggest diamond I want to say was like 13 carats or something. It's a pear shape. It was just crazy.
Natural
you know what I mean?
stones?
Yes, they were natural stones, but she just for her, it's just what she, you know, that's her style. That's her style.
Client gets what the client wants.
You cannot. I've learned that for some clients, you just got to give them what they want to do, you know. And for her, she is that's her style. She likes big, beautiful pieces, and she's willing to go all in on them.
Now, real quick for the listeners and the viewers, can you quickly touch on the difference between lab and natural when it comes to like availability? And I want to talk about specifically, like once you get to a certain size, it gets very hard to find certain stones.
Yeah, 100%. So let's, to make it really, really fast, the difference between lab and natural, obviously natural is mined from the earth. Lab is manufactured in a laboratory, right? There's a couple types of lab grown diamonds, but they're all manufactured like that. Now, in terms of availability, diamonds, natural diamonds, there are many natural diamonds, but in terms of the high quality natural diamonds, it's a much smaller percentage. And as you go to, like you said, bigger diamonds of natural high quality becomes an even smaller percentage. So it becomes like a hunt. You know, you're looking for whatever, a 5 carat diamond, right? You may have to actually call like many, many people to find whatever the requirements are that you're trying to sell. Now, you also have to partner that with your balancing a budget usually, right? And so, as you know, like you have a finite amount of space where you can move within your budget to where you can make what you would consider a reasonable amount of money on the project,
Right.
you know? And it's very, very easy in jewelry to be upside down on a project. Very, very easy. I've seen some ridiculous pieces where the jeweler's like, I made like $500. It's like, all right, well, you know, that happens sometimes,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah, the kind of advent of lab diamonds is actually really great for the industry right now, because what it's doing is it's giving a lot more people accessibility to have more fun with their jewelry.
Yeah.
Right. You're seeing a lot more people that don't necessarily have the budget to do big giant pieces. They're doing special pieces for significantly less that they wouldn't normally do. Right. Most people big spend on their engagement ring, but now you see people doing lab tennis bracelets or necklaces or whatever, watches, whatever it is, you know. And it's fun as a jeweler because you get to be more creative. I love making rings and things like that, but it's really fun when you get to do something weird, something different.
Do you ever tell your clients, you have 3 options. You can have it good, fast, or cheap, but you can only pick 2?
I tell other jewelers that. I never tell my client that. For my clients, it's gonna be good and fast, but it probably won't be cheap.
Right.
You know, most likely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, for the folks listening out there, when you're looking for a certain stone within a certain budget, you have to consider whether you're going to do lab or natural, but then you also consider the 4 C's, and that's kind of like the sliding scale of your budget. Like, do you want to have the best of the best?
Yeah.
Then it's going to cost you. But if you're willing to play with, the different colored and clarity, and as you do your research out there and you're looking at different cut of stone and how it refracts the light and stuff, you can kind of get a gauge of where you want to be. And if you have a great private jeweler, they're going to walk you through everything and make sure that you're comfortable within your range. Yeah,
jewelry is a big trust industry. You know, it's one of the last handshake industries. And if you're a good jeweler, you take your reputation extremely seriously. And so having a good layer of trust between your client and yourself is like really critical. And there's jewelers that have made mistakes and sometimes they never recover from it. You know, so you definitely have to build a good rapport with your client. And honesty is always the way to lead. You know, and some clients say, hey, I want this, but this is my budget. And you have to be honest and say, your budget doesn't support that. You know, this is a good alternative.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, sometimes you have to be the SME and tell them that they cannot do that.
Yeah.
A lot of people in sales, no matter the industry, are afraid to tell the client no.
Yeah.
And that bites them in the butt down the road.
That's how you end up upside down on that piece. And I've seen it a lot because jewelers, like any business, they want to make money, right? But sometimes you bite off more than you can chew. And then what you see is jewelers will start cutting corners. And for me, I'll never compromise on my quality or my systems, right? And when you start seeing jewelers do that, to another jeweler, it's very obvious, but ultimately the person that you are hurting is the end consumer, you know, and they may not know it now, they may not know it in 10 years, but I can't really live with knowing that like I cut this corner, that corner to make whatever, a percent more or something like that.
I find the education of a client one of the most fun parts about being in the jewelry industry, because you're helping them learn about something that's so important to like the lasting relationship. And, they're spending a lot of hard-earned money with you.
Yeah.
So until you get them to a point where they're extremely comfortable with you, who more than likely they've never met you since the first time they walked into your store, you have to build a lot of credibility quickly.
Yeah.
Because they're about to drop thousands of dollars.
Yeah, legitimately, right? Like a lot of people don't realize that jewelry purchases is not, even the smaller purchases are not like $100. You know, a lot of times people are spending thousands of dollars, right? Especially when it comes to engagement rings. And I think the bigger part of that too is you're making something that's going to live with them forever. Like when I make somebody's engagement ring, I understand now that I'm making your forever piece. Like to you, this is a family heirloom now. And so as a jeweler, it's your duty to respect that as such, right? And so that's where you can't compromise on that. You have to make a piece that you would be proud of, because now you're, whether you want to or not, you're part of that person's family now forever. Your story is always part of that. And hopefully some of the really legendary jewelers that I look up to, you know, they've done mom's ring, grandma's ring, the kid's ring. Like I would love the idea of telling some kid one day that's like, hey man, I met your dad in a cigar lounge, you know, smoking a cigar and made his ring. And this is the crazy adventure we went on to do that.
Yeah. It's funny how quickly people will integrate you into their lives once you've become part of that. It's such an intimate process.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful experiences to have in the jewelry industry. And we're blessed to be in one of the best cities to be doing jewelry in the first place.
We're in a great city to do jewelry. We are in a city where, generally speaking, our industry is very honorable. You deal with a lot of good people. You're in a city where the general clientele can afford the really crazy stuff and, you know, the not so crazy stuff. And our Jewelers Row is just fun. Like it's really, really fun to spend time down there, especially as you start to get to know people. And if you ask the right questions, you can hear just some crazy stories of the last, 100 years. on Jewelers Row.
Yeah, there's a lot of history on that block.
Yeah.
How about we talk watches? Omega is a brand synonymous with James Bond, and I
Yeah.
know you and I both appreciate an Omega watch.
Yeah.
Talk to me about some of your favorite models of Omega.
I'm a Seamaster all day guy, Seamaster, Speedmaster guy. I've always loved those Omegas. What I've recently started getting into is a lot of vintage Omegas, and like Omega vintage, there's not even really a way to like quantify it. Like they just had so many insane styles and like random little stories through the brand over the years. So yeah, I've jumped in and out of vintage Omegas, and they're much more affordable. So for me, it's fun because I feel like I can buy maybe a couple at a time and kind of have some fun there.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Speedmaster guy when it comes to Omega, but I like the anniversary pieces because
Yeah, totally.
for me personally, I don't really love having just kind of like a off the rack standard piece. I want to have something unique, and I want to build a collection that says this is Thomas's collection, and it's
totally.
like each piece has to ring for some like interesting part of like my brain or whatever. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, I think it's the 50th anniversary Apollo Speedmaster where it's got gold on the dial and on the back it's like that astronaut footprint or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I absolutely love that watch, and of course these pieces are limited release and probably sitting in a bunch of safes across the country.
For sure.
So I'll probably not have an opportunity to buy it, but it's just a gorgeous piece. And you look at the Speedmaster line, I mean, nowadays they're coming out with a new version like every 3 to 6 months, it feels like. And it's tough because you're like, oh, I could buy that. I like that. Oh, yeah, I can see myself wearing that. And it's like, these marketing guys know what they're doing.
They 100% are, man. And, to your point about the anniversary, there's pieces that I really like, too. For example, they had the 75th anniversary of the Seamaster. And they came out with a, like, baby blue type color, and they, like, released it in Greece and everything. And that color is my favorite color. And so I just, like, I couldn't control myself. I'm like, I need this watch. But then the whole line was that color, and I just couldn't decide. I'm like, these all look gorgeous, but I think that's the power of a good brand, right? Because it makes you want to just spend all your money. I want every single one.
Absolutely.
But yeah, to your point, you never know what you're going to get next, and that kind of makes it a little. It perpetuates that collector's mentality, but it also makes it a little scary if you're like, maybe this is my first watch, and so you're like, I don't know what I want to jump into. But I always tell people, just go for it. Just go for it.
My taste in watches has changed over the years too, and I think it comes with more education and more knowledge of what's happening in the industry.
Yeah.
For example, when I was a pilot in the Army, I was really into the Rolex Air King because I'm like, oh, this is a pilot-centric watch. Totally. But then you get into Breitling, which are like pilot-centric watches, and then you got all these other brands that have chronographs and functionality and stuff, and you're like, damn, like I'm really glad I didn't pull the trigger on this.
There's so many. When you're a pilot, there's so many, man. There's so IWC, Bell and Rock. There's like so many when it comes to being a pilot.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole, and I'm very thankful that I didn't pull the trigger on that Air King because now I'm like in love with so many other watches, and the funds can only go so far. Like there's no unlimited budget for watches, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
So Omega, Seamaster, Black James Bond.
Yeah.
You're a diver, correct?
I am. I'm technically a free diver.
Okay.
More than a scuba diver, but I do both. But my like happy place is when I'm free diving.
So how'd you even get into diving in the first place?
I got injured actually in college. So well, let me back up a little bit. So my senior year of high school, like most seniors, I'm like, I don't really want to do anything this year. And so I had to take some like random, elective classes. And one of them was scuba diving, randomly enough at my high school. And I took it thinking it was going to be complete, just whatever, right? And I immediately fell in love with it. I was like, this is so cool. We live in the Midwest. So I'm like, I don't really get to spend a lot of time in the ocean. Like it really intrigued me. And so that's where I first started taking an interest in the ocean. Then in college, I ended up injuring myself playing football. And I had to rehab in a pool. And so then I started spending a lot of time in a pool like every day. So at that point, I'm like, I'm starting to like swimming. I'm starting to like being in the water. And I was always a pretty good swimmer. And so what I started doing was in my summers, I would start traveling to places that had water, right? And again, I told you I love Miami, right? And so I started going down to Miami. I didn't actually know this until I was like much further in my 20s, but Miami's an hour away from like one of the most beautiful places to dive ever. And I was just going there randomly thinking like, oh, how convenient is this? And I didn't realize the scope of it until I like really went off the deep end with my hobby. And now it's something that I do. It would be a bad year for me if I don't dive like at least probably a handful of times
Yeah.
at some point. Yeah. Yeah.
What watches do you like to wear when you're diving? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that
Yeah.
know the term diver watch, like Rolex Submariners or
Yeah. Totally.
whatnot, but they're wearing it to their finance bro job.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, so
100%.
using watches for their actual tool use, what do you like to wear when you dive?
I'm still a Seamaster guy, to be honest with you. But for me, really, the way that I've started approaching watches recently is I think about what the whole trip is going to be, right? So sometimes I'm going on a trip and I'm, I don't know, I'm going to hike or something like that, right? So I think about I don't want to travel with a lot of watches, especially watches of value, right? And so I'm like, what is something that I can wear through majority of this trip? But more times than not, it's been a Seamaster.
Okay.
Yeah.
What can you give the audience a recommendation for a nice watch? Let's just say like the 2,000 to 5,000 range that's not going to break the bank, but is maybe timeless, classy.
Ooh, put me on the spot with that one. $2,000 to $5,000 range, timeless and classy that will not break the bank. You know, there really is. That's a really cool price point because there's a lot of watches in that price point. Assuming you can get one around that budget, and it may have to be pre-owned, right? But I think Tudors are phenomenal. I've always thought that Tudors are really solid watches. Again, a brand new Tudor is probably going to just break that $5,000 mark right now, and everybody raises their prices every year.
Right.
But I think that's a really solid, what I would call a quote unquote big boy watch. You know, like that's a nice timepiece.
I think the owner of the Chicago Podcast Studio is a Tudor fan, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Again, great watches, always quality. Again, if you're not against going pre-owned, which I don't feel any way about going pre-owned versus new if you kind of know what you're looking at, right? Same thing with like a car, right? A lot of Omegas, a lot of pre-owned Omegas just tend to last like forever. Like you can regularly find like 100-year-old Omegas online. So you can find one, you know, maybe secondhand that's in that price point.
My opinion on pre-owned watches actually has changed in the last couple of years. The more I get to know it and be around the industry, if you can get it from a reputable dealer where you know it's either been serviced by the manufacturer or maybe it had one owner that they knew very well and it's not dinged up and the crystals aren't cracked and stuff like that. I mean, you can save a lot of money. It's like buying a new car, right? The minute you drive it off the lot, you're losing tons of value. But with a pre-owned watch, I mean, it's still got that automatic movement, stainless steel. It's going to last. And if you can trust who you got it from, you can save quite a bit of money.
I know that I'm biased in that aspect because I've been in the industry long enough that like I know those people, right? I know who to talk to. I know where to take my watch if I have an issue, right? And so for me, it's less scary than if I was somebody that has no entry into the industry, right? Now, if you have to buy like a brand new piece, there's so many great brands that are around that price point. You don't necessarily even have to spend $2,000 to $5,000. You know, you can find a lot of beautiful watches at almost any budget. Almost any. You can even say $100 and find a great watch.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if these brands wanted to send the Scorpion S some marketing dollars, I'd love to shout out Hamilton and Longines and Tudor and shit. Even Seiko's got some good pieces. If you're
Casio too, man. Shout out to Casio.
Absolutely.
I rock the Casio all day.
Yeah, there's if you're not hoity-toity and kind of like snobby about it and open-minded, I mean, there's a ton of great brands out there.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of the fun of collecting watches is that it's just like a never-ending hole, you know? So you can go down every which side of it. And I know guys that have like some world-class collections, and you're talking big dollar stuff, and they'll wear like a couple $1,000 watch every day. And they're like, this is my daily like beater. The same way for me too. A watch that I wear more often than not is a watch that I got for less than $1,000, and I just love that watch to death.
Yeah, I mean, the way I approach watches is you buy something that you're gonna love, and if other people that are enthusiasts recognize it and appreciate it, that's cool. But don't be buying the watch just to flex and you know become watch poor and
watch.
There's a lot of wrong ways you can go about it. So
in my opinion, if you collect anything for just the dollar amount return that you're gonna get for it, right, the potential value of it. In my opinion, I think you're doing it wrong. I think you always have to collect things that you like because your collection you'll always be proud of your collection then. I think people that only buy it for the value, you get stuck in this loop and you're never actually fulfilled. And then you have a house full of stuff that you don't actually like, you know, and not everybody's going to like it either. You know, we try to get rid of it. So
yeah. Buy what you love because you love it.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, I'm going to keep you on your toes here,
Okay.
James Bond. So, James Bond has been known to have many beautiful women in his life.
Okay.
Tell me about some of the beautiful women in your life.
Tell you about some of the beautiful women in my life.
Do you have one currently?
I do not have one currently. Yeah, I don't know how to really answer that in an appropriate manner. I just like James Bond and enjoy beautiful women, enjoy their company. I don't have one currently, but I mean, if you know somebody, tell them maybe holler at me. I might be around.
Yeah, you're a catch, and I don't know who wouldn't want
Don't
to
make me blush.
be with a man of fine taste like yourself.
Thank you. And I'm tall. Tell your list I'm tall. That's usually
Yeah,
a plus.
well, maybe we'll get a shot of us standing up after the show. So going to places that you want to be, kind of going back to our previous themes of putting yourself in those spots. You love Miami as well, right?
I love Miami. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I love Miami.
We're a Chicago-centric show, but sometimes you just got to get away from the cold, and I understand why. So
Totally.
Give me a couple recommendations if I'm going to go down to Miami, like restaurants or fun places to go.
Yeah, the biggest question that I always ask myself if I'm going to Miami is, am I going here to party or am I going here to like be a normal human being, right? And so if you're going to be a normal human being, there's a lot of places you can have a great time. There's beautiful restaurants down there. The lifestyle is great. Go for a jog, things like that. Art, I'm a big art lover. Miami has world-class art museums, like the Perez Art Museum. It's one of my favorite places ever. Also great gardens. I spend a lot of time I live in the city, and so I don't get to like walk through a garden that often. And so when I'm in Miami, I try to visit some gardens. So like Vizcaya is a great garden. That's a beautiful place. Miami Botanical Gardens, great place. Fairchild Botanical Garden, amazing place. You can have a good time there. Now, if you're looking to party, that's a different story, right? And so Miami has many, many nightclubs, right? You'll have the time of your life in nightclubs. If you're into cars, Miami's a great place to have fun in some cars. Miami, I might be wrong about this, but I believe Miami is the first place to really popularize the club restaurant. And so it's basically a restaurant. You're eating, doing all the things you normally do in a restaurant, and it kind of transforms a little bit after a while. Like there might be some sort of show happening. There might be a DJ. Some restaurants like Sexy Fish literally light up. The restaurant just changes colors completely. And so I think depending on what you're looking for, it can work really well. The fun part for me about Miami is that it's small. Compared to Chicago, very massive city, Miami's not that large. And so if you're somebody that goes down there as often as I do, you can really hit a lot of parts of Miami very quickly and make friends very easily.
So you've told me about Sexy Fish on a couple occasions. What's your favorite part about going there?
It's just so ridiculous. It's just it's not like anything else. It's just, one, it's a gigantic space. It is completely over the top. Like I said, everything that you think lights up. The food is overpriced, but pretty good. The drinks are great. The decor is just phenomenal. I think there's a waterfall, like just randomly in the middle of the restaurant. Very beautiful people there. If that's your speed, it's just a really fun place to do something that you're probably not going to see really anywhere else.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, you and I had some adventures outside of the podcast studio, and I met an alter ego named Restaurant Ren once or twice.
Oh yeah.
Are you allowed to divulge any details on him?
Yeah, I'll give you the full scoop on Restaurant Ren. Restaurant Ren is a very dangerous alter ego of mine. Generally speaking, Restaurant Ren starts from maybe enjoying a couple too many adult beverages and being at a restaurant that is a fun place to be. Think like your Sexy Fishes and things of that nature. And pretty much what happens is Restaurant Ren just sees red, right? It gets to a point where I'm like, you know what? I'm a foodie. What if we eat everything? And so I just start ordering things, right? And I have a lot of fun. I like to have fun when I go out. I'm a very silly, goofy, playful person. And so I generally try to put that energy into the world. And sometimes like servers and people I'm with, like they pick up on that, bartenders, and they start having fun, and that amps it up even more. And I'm like, who cares if there's like 5 more drinks or, bring out 10 more entrees or something like that. That it just becomes just an absolutely ridiculous character.
Well, Restaurant Ren has been around for a while, so I know you have recommendations for Chicago. Let's start with, give me a couple bar recommendations that you like to go to.
Ooh, That's a good one. My local bar that I just like to go and enjoy a good drink in a beautiful looking bar. It's called Pendry. It's in the Pendry Hotel. It's in their lobby. They also have one above. If you're looking for them, that's probably where I'm at. It's a great place to enjoy. But if you're looking to like, have a little bit more fun, there's a number of places that are really good. For example, Money Gun in the West Loop. I've been
Love
going
Money
there.
Gun.
Yeah, I've been going there since they opened. Great cocktail bar.
They
Love
used to
it.
have that punch card, if you remember, where they had all of the cocktails written on the wall, I think in chalk, and then you'd get a punch card, and they would just staple every time you get a cocktail.
Yeah.
I mean, there was what?
Try to clear the wall. I think it's like 30 something. Yeah.
30 or 40
something
cocktails
like
on this little punch card, and you're like, I have to come back.
You have to come back. I like cocktails, right? And so I'm not really a sports bar guy. So, I'll be at like maybe Violet Hour or like Aviary. A big one too is pro tip. Hotel bars are usually pretty good. If you go to like a nice hotel, they have a really nice bar. You'll really, really enjoy yourself.
Yeah, hotel bars are a sleeper. I remember pre-COVID, there was this bar in the Virgin Hotel.
Yeah, totally.
Just above Miss Ricky's, and it was a perfect spot. I took several dates there, just reasonable priced, neat bar. You got a great view of, was it State Street over there?
Yeah.
Or Wabash, whatever it's on.
I think it's Lake. Maybe.
Yeah. Someone in the comments fact check us and tell me what streets.
Literally live there, and I don't know
the Virgin Hotel's on. But yeah, you're right. Then you got like the Hoxton and West Loop, and
great bar. Yeah.
So many great hotel bars that I think maybe younger people might not appreciate because they're trying to go to all like the Instagram hotspots and stuff.
Totally.
But when you get to your like mid-20s and you're starting to make some money and you want to like explore the city more, I mean, absolute places, great places to go. Yeah,
and I can name all the big bars where you just go and party your face off. Like those are fun too sometimes, but I'm not at a point where I want to do that every weekend.
Right.
But I do enjoy a good, a really nice cocktail.
So let's move to restaurants. When you're looking for a good meal, and I think you're not much of like a steak guy, you're more like a seafood guy, right?
Yeah. I try not to eat too much red meat, and I'm lactose intolerant, so like pizzas and things don't really work well for me. I mean, it tastes good, but they just don't work well for me.
So your opinion is going to be not a hot take, but a unique view into city culinary, because everyone's kind of used to Chicago pizza recommendations, Chicago steakhouse recommendations.
Yeah.
So where do you go for good seafood or salads or whatever?
Right now I'm really feeling Miru. It's in the St. Regis. It's a Japanese restaurant, and beautiful. Service is great. View is amazing. Food is on point. Great tequila selection. If that's your jam like me. I love that. One of my favorite restaurants actually closed, and it really kind of hurt me deeply. GT Fish and Oyster.
Yeah.
That was just like,
that was a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, man. And that was like my home, man. That was just, it's really hard when you have the dietary restrictions like I do to find a place that one is reasonably affordable, right? Like, cause sushi can get up there if that's, your thing. But two is like really consistent. And we're in the Midwest, right? And Midwesterners like steaks and pizza, really,
right.
And so I'm like, all right, well, where can I go? So GT Fish was just my jam for a very long time before it closed. Yeah,
there's unfortunately with COVID, it kind of killed off a couple of good restaurants, and
too many.
One of the restaurants, Lowry's, who was a big prime rib restaurant, unfortunately closed down, and we had a good COVID story where we had ordered takeout because it was like the last night they were open.
Yeah.
And I'm in the getaway car. My buddy Kevin gets out and he goes in and he starts taking a little while. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? So I'm sitting there for 20, 30 minutes. And he finally comes out. He's like, bro, you're not going to believe what just happened. I'm like, yeah, I've been texting you. Like, you didn't respond. What's going on?
Yeah.
He's like, I met the manager. The guy said they're selling everything for cash. They're liquidating this place. We need to get rid of stuff. And Kevin asked him, you got any bourbon? It's like, yeah, you want to come check out the shelf downstairs? And he's like, yes, I do. So they go down there and the guy's walking him around and just showing him stuff. It's like all of these allocated bottles that you can't buy at the liquor store.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, here's Weller 12. Here's like Mac 18. I know it's not allocated for you bourbon nuts out there. But all these great bottles. And
you
it's
buy
like
everything.
Just as much cash as he had in his wallet is the amount of bottles he pulled upstairs. And he's like, the guy said we can come back tomorrow. And I was like, let's
deal.
go.
Yeah, see you tomorrow.
So we just hauled bottles out of that place, even wine too. And it was like, I pulled out some random like whiskey glasses and just random stuff. And I mean, when opportunity knocks, right? It's unfortunate they had to go out of business, but I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Lowry's. And I believe they have a location in Vegas, if I'm not mistaken.
Do they? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I'll have to hit them up next time I'm in town and just give them a big thank you for that.
I love that. It's funny the random things that you discover when you like frequent a place.
Yeah.
I lived in West Loop for many years, and there's a place called Mart Anthony's. All right, don't make it hot if you know this place. All right, but Mart Anthony's, and great family Italian restaurant, been there for 70 years or whatever. Right. So recently, the younger son started taking over the restaurant in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have some friends and things and I would go there regularly, and come to find out, this guy's a tequila collector. And if you know me, I'm a tequila drinker.
Yep.
And so that became apparent to him, and he started, you have your classic bar tequilas, and he's like, no, don't drink this stuff. And he started pulling out just the rarest tequilas that you can find, Tears of Llorona, all this like really crazy small batch stuff. And when I go there now, again, you're not me, so you can't do this. But when I go there now, we enjoy some stuff from the cellar.
I love Mart Anthony's because it's kind of off the beaten path.
Yeah, very hidden.
Unless you know, you're not going to really know.
100%. You would not know. And so there might be a dark, stormy night where I'm in the back somewhere eating, fish. Probably.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we covered drinks, we covered main courses.
Yeah.
And I know you're not a huge sweets guy, but let's say you need to go somewhere for a post-dinner drink or maybe a little chocolatey something. Is there any maybe dark, mysterious, intimate places you like to take a companion with?
Dang, man, that's tough. Now I'm revealing my secrets. Yes, there are. One that I will give you is Berkshire Room. My thing is when I don't really eat sweets, but I will partake in like a sweeter drink, and like for tequilas in particular, añejos, there's a lot of sugar content in them. And so that's a little bit more pricey variant of tequila, and very sweet depending on what you order. And so, going to a cocktail lounge like that, one, is great to take a date because it's a beautiful place and dates like that. But two, they make the stuff that I like in there as well. Now, if I had to like eat something sweet, I'm not even sure what I would do. I'm a candy guy. I do actually have a horrible sweet tooth, which is why I don't eat sweets.
Okay.
But when I do, like I kind of go deep on what is it? Twizzlers, Swedish Fish. What else is my jam? Really anything gummy is just kind of like it's problems for me. Yeah.
Mental. No, I'll keep that in the back pocket. Well, I'm going to switch gears a little bit,
Sure.
kind of focus it back on the Scorpion Nest. And that's kind of how we really grew our friendship, was the in-person networking events that we've been doing over the years. What are some of the favorite events that come to mind, or maybe some of the neat people that you met that you never would have ran into before?
Oh man, the immediate one that jumps to the top of my head is the cigar tastings. Those for me were great. I am a regular cigar smoker, but I would never consider myself a big expert on it. And so having a forum where I could go in an intimate setting, meet mostly strangers and ask the questions that I wanted to know, or smoke a cigar I've never heard of and kind of walk through it. That was just really great for me. That really, stimulated my brain. You've held a few other events that, like different talks and things of that nature. Those are great because you get to really see people be curious, and I thrive on people exploring their curiosities. That's something that I try to do a lot. And so it's really fun to get to just like, hey, we don't know what's going on here, but this guy does. Let's just go pick his brain for a little bit and hang out.
Yeah, I mean, we held that watch enthusiast meetup over at Josh Kircher's place, which I think we talked about on the first episode.
Yeah.
But just to see the breadth of different enthusiasts, right? So you got your entry level guys, and not to say that they're entry level people, but they're just early on in their journey, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then you have jewelers that have been around watches for decades.
Yeah.
And the neat thing about that is people are bringing different perspectives from their life and saying, oh, I really love this brand and here's why. And people telling their intimate stories on why they like their certain timepieces.
Yeah.
And then also the sharing of knowledge, right? So I might not know about a specific brand, but you as a jeweler can say, oh yeah, that brand's crap, it's all marketing, or they have so much heritage and history that you should really dive into this brand more.
Totally.
And watching those natural relationships build and the curiosity of these people was just electric.
100%.
And I really can't wait to do another watch meetup here in Chicago. And I know you've been talking about it too. So
love it. Yeah.
If we do like timepieces and tequila, or watches and whiskey or something of that corny nature, I'm sure we can get a sizable group together, because this city's so large,
Yeah.
and I know there's a fan base for watches.
100%. That's the cool thing about our city, as we've kind of played with that concept, is you don't actually realize it, but if you just look at the retailers in our city, the actual like jewelry watch retailers, we have some heavy hitters, right? And so that obviously somebody's buying those watches. And so when you hold those events where people come, and it's not necessarily just about you have to buy something, it's just like you can be a person that's interested in this hobby. You do see people just completely light up. You get into crazy debates about whatever,
Yeah.
and it just becomes really, really fun. It's really enjoyable.
Two things that I want to ask you before we kind of wrap up.
Sure.
Number one, who do you think would be a great future guest on the Scorpion Nest podcast?
Well, you mentioned his name earlier. I think Josh Kircher is a phenomenal guest, a brilliant human being, just one of the nicest people in the world, really talented at what he does, right? Making bespoke clothing. He just gets it. He has the unique ability to kind of look at a person and, you tell him a little bit about your story, and he gets to create a whole experience and build you something that's uniquely you, and similar to what my approach is to making jewelry and how I want to make somebody feel. He makes you feel that way when you work with him.
One might say he makes you feel like Superman when you put on a suit.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, when I get Josh on the podcast, we'll definitely dive deep into that story.
You got to do it in the suit.
Yeah, you know what? I'll bust it out for that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Love it.
For the listeners and the viewers that want to connect with you after this episode, where can they find you?
Easiest way to find me is just go to Instagram. Find me on Instagram. I'm not sure. Maybe you'll put it up at some point. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I'm easy to talk to. Shoot me a DM or something.
What's your handle? What's at RN?
It's RNNCK. So it's my full name just with no vowels, but it's RNNCK. You'll see a very handsome photo of me. And then you'll see a bunch of just like random jewelry and me being silly.
Yeah, you'll have to send me the photographer that edited that photo for you, because
I can do that.
We can always use some touches.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. That's funny.
Well, the Black James Bond, president of Chicago Jewelers Association, Ren Thompson, it's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you, man.
I think we'll have to do another episode here in the future.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it, bro.